You're good, right, Chad? Okay. All right, I'll call to order the Plan Commission meeting on February 21st at 6:31. First on the agenda is approval of minutes from January 17th.
So moved.
All right, any changes at all? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. I do not see anyone here from the public, so there's no public appearances for non-agenda items. Anything you need to change on the agenda?
From the staff side.
All right, then we'll get right to it. First up is the certified survey map request, CS 2496-23, and I know we have Matt online for this. Matt, do you want to tell us what you're doing here?
Yeah, I guess I was going to let staff pretty much cover it with the staff report. This is really the CSM before you guys this evening is the same CSM that we brought forth about a year ago. There was just a little bit of a delay in getting it recorded based on some other outside circumstances. So really nothing has changed, just getting this back in front of Plan Commission for the approval so that we can move forward with recording of the CSM.
Okay, great. Staff report, please.
So as Matt mentioned, this has come before the Plan Commission, and essentially the very same project. There were several public and private easements that needed to be released, some new easements that needed to be recorded, and just working through this process took some time, and now Public Works is pleased. All the utility companies are pleased with the CSM that's before you. So staff recommends approval of the CSM CS 2496-2023 with the two conditions.
All right, great. And let's see, any questions, comments, Rich?
Yeah, I have a short one. There was something about a public water main easement shall be 10 feet each side, and the CSM showed 12 feet total. What was the end of that? You had mentioned something in the staff report, too, on that.
Matt, you might have to help me fill this in, but it's my understanding that there was at some points that the easement was 10 feet, but it had to shrink in other places. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there was coordination on the water main easement. So if you go back to 2016 and really even prior to that on the CertCo property when the Verona Road development went through, City of Fitchburg and CertCo agreed to a water main easement along the southern end of their property directly adjacent to Verona Road. And with this CSM, the old right-of-way from the cul-de-sac bulb that used to provide access to CertCo, which no longer exists, those lands were right-of-way. They were deeded back to CertCo based on an agreement that the DOT and the city and CertCo had, and that's where a water main easement was created over that portion of the property. The water main was installed back in 2016 and 2017 when Verona Road was under construction, but that water main resided in public right-of-way, so an easement was not required. However, after deeding that land back to CertCo, that easement was required. The easement width matches what was provided on the southern portion of the property, and on the northern portion in this new segment that we dedicated to the city, the easement, there is also some existing MG&E facilities that were within the vicinity, adjacent to that water main. And so the width was worked out with an agreement with MG&E and City Public Works on where each of those utilities could lie, and they both have their easement rights that they wish to have. So I don't know if I answered the question precisely on the width, but that's kind of the background story of what happened with this CSM and the water main easement.
No, I was just concerned that it had been resolved, so I'm good.
All right. Anything else? Someone want to do a motion?
I'll move to approve certified survey map request CS-2496-23 with the 2 conditions noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. Thank you, Matt.
Yep, thank you.
And next one, certified server map, CS 2482-22. Looks like maybe you just want to go ahead and take this one, Deanna.
I do. Staff is requesting that we once again defer this until April 18th for review. And the reason is that this project is moving forward, but the CSM needs to be finalized yet by the developers. You may recall that the Plan Development District, SIP, and the ADR was approved back in November of 2022. Staff worked out an agreement that the CSM would need to be recorded prior to final occupancy of the building. The CSM isn't needed for the construction to proceed, but staff recommended the CSM for this project to clean up some existing easements. That process to clean up those existing easements with the neighboring properties is still continuing. So staff is in agreement with the developer to go ahead and defer this CSM for another couple of months.
All right, any questions on that at all? I think officially the motion would probably be moved to postpone until April 18th, I think it was.
Yeah.
I'll move to defer certified survey map CS 2482-22 until April,
Actually, it'd be postponed. Moved to
or postpone?
Yeah.
Okay, till CS 2482-22 till April.
Seconded by Randy. All in favor of postponing, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, that is postponed. And next one is Resolution R2523. What's this about?
This is a resolution to release a public sanitary sewer easement on Lot 2 of CSM 8023. This is part of the Lacey Road reconstruction and the Lacey Road and Seminole Highway improvements. In order for those improvements to proceed, Public Works is requesting that the city, that Plan Commission support, and then also council support the release of this public sanitary sewer easement. It's not needed, and it will allow for development in this area for the Lacey Road reconstruction.
All right, any questions or comments at all?
All right. I'll motion then to approve Resolution R-25-23.
Second.
Seconded by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. And what's the next one about, Deanna?
A resolution R-40-23 is approving an agreement and/or permit between the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and the city of Fitchburg to reconstruct and improve the Badger State Trail as part of the Lacey Road construction project. So this is an agreement that will allow the city to work with the DNR and the DOT to improve and reconstruct that connection for the Badger State Trail.
All right, questions or comments? Seems like an important thing to do.
Okay. Motion to approve Resolution R-40-23.
I'll second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And then Resolution R-2223. Do you want to speak to this first?
You go ahead, you,
You want me to? Okay.
I defer.
All right. You're welcome to. So this is the updated ARPA TID investment plan. We did this last year for the first time. ARPA money is about $3 million we got from the state for a bunch of different projects. There's some requirements on that. But then also we have now 2 TIDs that we've closed. We're closing another one right now. And there is some money that we do get in the one-time funds from both of those. And so there's a bunch of projects we started last year that we're already working on. And with the additional money from closing the second TID, then there's some more projects in there. Now, a couple of things about this. One is that it's kind of the first step of the budget process. And from here, it goes to the CIP, and then it goes to the operating budget. And it's not necessarily required to have this be zero. In fact, there's about $1 million worth of projects above what we have available. And this is going to be the last TID of any significance that we close for a while. We'll be closing the TID to be inherited with the town of Madison, but that doesn't put much money into this bank for us to use. And so it's going to be a while before we close anything else. So there are projects on here that aren't going to happen, at least through this funding. They could happen other ways, but not through this funding. Some of the things that are relevant to Plan Commission, well, two, I guess one that we already have money set aside for and we're started is the comprehensive plans for both Greenfield and South Stoner Prairie. And maybe that's part of the staff report perhaps in a minute to see where we are with those. But also another thing we put in here is some money in a few years from now to do a comprehensive update of the comprehensive plan. And really need to, the last one was really just kind of a quick once over, change a couple of minor things, but we really needed this time to do an exhaustive, probably 2-year process, I would guess, if I was going to guess. And it's going to cost some money to do that, and so we want to make sure we have the money to do that. We have to do it every 10 years. That will put it at probably like 6 to 8 years. We can do it earlier, and I think it's important because when you look at our future development areas, after South Stoner Prairie gets plotted and starts getting developed, there's no other land on the west side of the city to develop. And maybe that's okay, but maybe we want to reevaluate that to see, because it's a popular area. We've seen a lot of great things come into that part of the city. It's in the Verona School District primarily, and that's a popular school district for people to be in as well. So things like that, I think it's always good to do a full investment or look at something like that. There's a lot of other projects on here, but we also updated some costs for some other projects. For example, the tennis courts at McKee Farms Park, those are increased a lot in the cost from what we had estimated.
460%.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess was skeptical, that the number was right last year, but now that we actually have some better bidding on it, we got a real number in there. So there's a lot of projects that, all the projects are great, and there's some things that had to take out, but these are also projects that need to be one-time funds. They can't be, for example, a staff position, because once this money's gone, it's gone. And so you can't do something like a staff position with this. It does have to be things, and there's some like road servicing in here, redoing the shelter at Tower Hill. So there's a lot of stuff on here. I didn't actually add any projects myself into this. I just took suggestions from our staff. And so, like I said, all these are great projects. There's a number of these that aren't going to get funded through this way, but I don't know if there's any specific questions on specific projects I can speak to or not. I think, next year's, or council, or 2 months from now, council and mayor will really be the ones that help decide on which of these projects continue to go forward. But a lot of them have already started since this did start last year. So, is there anything you want to add to that, Deanna?
One other thing that we had talked about, and this ended up in there too, was zoning and sign code update. So there was some funds that were in there too for us to take a good close look at the zoning code especially. That's really important from our standpoint, from staff standpoint. I think there's some room for improvement, given that so much of the projects that do come before you come before you as planned development districts. So that's kind of a signal that our zoning ordinance isn't really working very well when so much is coming as planned development districts. So I'm hopeful that that money will end up budgeted at some point. But I think the neighborhood planning process will be very helpful for us to kind of start thinking about some bigger pictures in terms of our zoning code. You know, do we want to do some more smart code? Or you know, what does that kind of look like in this next stage of development for the city? So a lot of opportunities there.
You know the last time that we did a full evaluation is, if ever?
I have no idea.
I don't know if we've ever done. I mean, obviously when we added smart code, there was some there, but I don't know if we've done a full evaluation of everything.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
How is something like that different, or viewed differently, I guess, by using these funds versus just everyday work of the planning department?
Well, that's a good question. So in our everyday kind of planning, to have a study for $150,000 would be very unusual in our little budget. What we would do if we wanted it, as the budget cycle goes through its process early on, if I wanted to do a planning study, I would say, hey, I want to do a planning study, this is my estimate, and add it into the budget. This has been a really helpful process to have the ARPA TID, because there's this money, this one-time money that's sitting there that works really well than me trying to ask for money. I don't know, maybe Mayor could talk a little bit better about that process, but I would just normally ask for it in my budget number.
I guess, but like, where does that money, do you anticipate, if we can't do it with staff, like, where does that, you know, 150,000 or whatever it is, what are those funds used on? If it can't be your salary or hiring somebody new, is it for consulting fees and
Oh, yeah, all of
consultant?
this is consultant.
Okay,
No,
thanks.
exactly. Sorry, I didn't understand no, these would be consultant hours. Our staff is completely full in our time than what we do right now.
Got it.
We don't have the staff right now to take on any sort of study like that, so, yeah.
Other questions?
Also just curious what TID just closed.
It's 4 and 6. So I think last year was the one over by Target. This year is Pro Mega. So over in this area. Very big one. Yeah. Yeah, and there's not going to be another one besides the small town mass one that closes for a while. But other questions? No, the nice thing is that by closing these, it does add a capacity to open more, because we're actually out of capacity for a while. So staff has already looked at some areas that make a lot of sense to do some more.
All right. You ready for motion?
If everyone's done with their comments, sure.
All right. Motion to approve Resolution R-22-23.
Second.
Sent by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. I'm sure Randy will report back on how you loved the plan and thought the mayor was fantastic and really smart and did such a great job. All right, Deanna, staff report.
Yeah, I will just add a couple of points on the neighborhood plans. The mayor mentioned that we are doing 2 neighborhood plans. The RFPs for those plans were released February 1. So what those are is requests for proposals. And so we're asking for consultants to put together a proposal to do each one of these neighborhood studies. The first one is South Stoner Prairie, just on the far west side, south of Lacey, and then the other one is Greenfield, which is just kind of off Irish Lane in that general area. And the requests for proposals are due on February 28th. And at that point, Brad Sipple, the community development planner, will be leading a review of those proposals, and then we'll select one of the proposals and then work on working through any sort of contracting, and then it will come to council, the finance committee and council, and for approval. So, yes.
When do you expect that to come before council? I mean, I know you mentioned some time periods there. Are you looking at
You know,
May or June, maybe? Or?
Oh, I would hope that we
Before?
want to get started before. It'll be after the election.
Yeah,
We'll,
okay.
we'll bring it forward after the
Okay,
election.
all right.
Yeah, so then we can get started. It's very unusual to be doing two neighborhood plans at the same time. But we felt that there's some synergies in doing those two neighborhood plans at the same time, especially kind of on that front end data collection. They're both Fitchburg. So there's going to be similar kinds of data collection. We expect that the community involvement pace will vary a little bit, and that we're expecting that the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan will move a little bit faster through the process than Greenfield. And the reason is that there's just a lot more residents and a lot more existing development within Greenfield. So they'll kind of stagger them. They'll start off at the same, but they'll kind of stagger out.
A lot more landowners too.
Yes, a lot more landowners, yeah. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated of a neighborhood planning process. Yeah, so hopefully we can get stuff put together for contracting in April is our goal. But staff will bring regular updates now. Once the next time we meet, we should have a pretty good understanding of the proposals that are before us, and so we'll give you guys an update of it. And that's all I have.
All right. Any questions at all? No? All right, then announcements.
I have a comment,
Okay.
something for future discussions. I think I would like to have a discussion amongst ourselves about ADRs. What is our real responsibility? What are our limitations? What are our guidelines? Because as I travel around the state and other neighborhoods, I see a lot of neighborhoods that look like they belong in a David Lynch movie. You know, just cookie cutter everything. And having a background in architecture, I would like to just see those wiped away. But I don't want to be critical of things that are within the bounds of what should be expected. So I'm not asking for anything now, but you guys, just to think about sometime during the next half year or year, to have some kind of either a presentation or discussion about what is our goal, what is our role, what is our, the guidelines and limitations of what we can do when we're doing an ADR.
I think it's a great idea, because one of the things that bugs me about when we have an ADR is that you might have one applicant who comes with the brick and the siding and all the examples of every material that they're going to use, here in Chambers. And then you got the next applicant who has kind of a rough drawn sketch of what they plan on doing, sometimes not even real quality. And how are we supposed to evaluate those? So I think including some of that, and I fully agree with what you said, because I would love to know kind of where our role is, but also, what is the level of expectation that we should have across all applicants? Because if a hand-drawn, drawing works, then great, but then we shouldn't be holding people to other standards. So we have that a lot.
Back in my working days, we would do hand-drawn, large drawings, but we would bring in samples of the brick and the window and the soffit or whatever, and that was just basically quality thing. But this does go beyond what I was referring to. And some of the neatest neighborhoods that we ever see are the ones that weren't done all at once. Like you look at University Heights. Now, granted, those are, historic architecture, Frank Riley, Frank Lloyd Wright, stuff like that. But my favorite type neighborhood is one where there's enough of a unique difference. And I was just having coffee with an old friend yesterday, and they have a HOA that limits this, their mailbox post. That's all I'm getting. I would like to just open that up sometime.
Yeah, it won't be the next couple months. I mean, next week is my last meeting, and then the month after that could be another planning commission's last meeting. I don't know if the next mayor will reappoint whoever is up. I don't even know who's up. I think it might be Ed. So
Next month's your last.
Next month is my last one. Yep, and then
Are you buying the beer afterwards?
I don't know if I can afford your tab. I don't know. So yeah, maybe in May or June or sometime after that.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and if you have new members, it's a good time to maybe go over a few basic things. It's always good to review some of that stuff and steps and all those types of things. And frankly, maybe the new council could use that in a committee of the whole as well.
Okay, I'll keep that in.
All right, any other announcements? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, nay. We are adjourned.